Let's answer some questions that people submitted online and let's see what we're looking like. So the first submission is, I walked into the bank confident. I've never missed a payment. My score is decent. I have money in the account, but the banker smiled, typed for a few minutes, and they said, unfortunately, we can't approve you at this time. No explanation, no roadmap, nothing. I walked out embarrassed, replaying the conversation in my head. What did they see that I didn't? There's just so much stuff in this, right? Like, okay, your credit score is decent. You didn't beat the score. So decent for some could be 600. The other people, it's like 700, right? That is one thing. If you never missed a payment, I'm assuming you're higher up, like a 700, and you have money in your account. There's a lot of things. Like if you go into a bank and you apply with somebody, depending on what you're applying for, it seemed like you applied for some sort of credit card. Bankers are going to take, even if they don't think you're going to get it, they're going to take your application for a credit card and, you know, line of credit and stuff like that. They're going to take that application. I've had it even personally where banks basically led me on and let me get all on the process to get approved, and I get rejected. You know, some banks don't like your credit profiles, and that's just it. Some of your times, the data points, your relationship history. For instance, I had a client with Chase that made $145,000 a month, and they wouldn't give him a credit card because they said that his internal relationship, even though he's been running money through his account, that specifically there's a transaction coming through that's going to overdraft his account, and he wasn't even overdrafted yet. So there's just so many little things when it comes to these banks that we don't see. So what I suggest is starting with pre-approvals. Walking into the bank doesn't help you guys get approved or anything like that. Walking into the bank to me is like walking into a Shark Tank. There's no point, or a Lion's Den. You guys are better off doing online or dealing with a rep that you don't have to just go into the bank with. We work with reps that we can just call and get things done. Every bank has different people. There's some reps that want to make money. There's some reps that don't really want to make the top. They don't want to be the top producer. So that's just some things to keep in mind. But I'd recommend trying pre-approvals. If it's a personal card, try Discover pre-approval in Capital One just to see if you can get pre-approved somewhere else, which means it might just be a relationship with that bank. All relationships aren't good relationships, right? A lot of times clients want to have relationships with banks. Sometimes you just need to apply for something and then decide to have that relationship, especially when it comes to credit unions. All right, let's get to the next one. Entrepreneurs, this one's for you. The caller said, the submission says, I started my business with personal credit because that's for everyone told me to do. Bootstrap, bet on yourself. You guys got to stop listening, everybody. Now, my business makes money, but my personal credit is max. My utilization is high, and every lender sees me as risky. I feel like I built the business, but trapped myself in the process. How do I separate my business from me without burning everything down? How do I separate the business from me without burning everything down? So this is one of the key things. When you guys open that LLC or the business, right? The LLC, LLP, or incorporation or whatever, you open that entity, you want to get a business bank account, because once you start running money through that bank account, there's revenue-based lending like Blue Vine, Fora Financial, Cardiff that can give you lending off of your revenue, right? You're going to have to PG some of them, but some of them you won't. It's going to be higher interest, but that's when you start having that separation. Like without having business credit and without having revenue, you're not going to get that type of funding. But when you have revenue, it may make more sense than instead of using all of your utilization on your personal. The only time that seems decent is if you know you have an expectation on return on investment. You have an expectation on, hey, I'm going to invest in this real estate, and then in 120 days, I'm going to sell it. That makes a little bit more sense. Most business owners carry debt if they've used it because we're like, oh, we made $5,000. I still have personal bills. I still have, taxes and all these things to worry about. The credit cards typically last because that is going to be $25 to $150 on a $5,000 limit. This next submission sounds successful on paper, but I want you to listen to the emotion underneath the numbers, okay? Hey, yeah, so I make about $120,000 a year. On paper, I should be fine. Red flag number one. But my credit is wrecked from my early 20s, bad decisions, bad relationships, just trying to survive. Red flag number two. I've paid things off. I don't miss payments anymore, but every time I need to make a move, invest, grow, breathe, I'm stuck paying cash. And honestly, it feels like I'm being punished forever for mistakes I already paid for. So I need to know, am I stuck like this or is there a way out? Well, you need to get your credit repaired. And there's just so many different companies out there. I recommend pay per delete and just get what you pay for. And at least you'll be in a scenario where you're not going to be waiting so long, but you're not going to be doing a sweep on your credit. And also, a lot of times people get their credit repaired, but they don't change their habits. So you paying cash is something you need to do right now. It's the punishment. Yeah, you need to, because you made bad decisions. And when you make bad decisions, one thing, you're probably making bad decisions another thing. How we do anything is how we do everything is just what I believe. So what I recommend is doing the pay per delete and then understanding that you need to change your behaviors in order to go to the next level, right? Which means you should have a budget, which means you should stay in your budget, and you should be only using credit for, specific reasons. And typically those reasons that are the best are really when they are dialed in investments, whether it's in your business or strategic investments in learning and stuff. That way you know and understand the return on investment. So I say all that to say, basically, you need to change your habits, get that credit repaired, pay per delete, and then focus on step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 1 is if you're already making income using like a job, then you can get into some credit unions and start building that up there. The problem is when people have, and I don't know if you do, have issues on their telecheck or their check systems or their early warning systems where banks don't want to give you a bank account. If not, go start building relationships with credit unions. That's going to help you in the long run. And you can do that even while you have bad credit. So this one actually happens. A lot of people do it, and I don't recommend it, and it sucks. But it's painful because it messes with your sense of right and wrong. We have to understand what the credit rating is, and I'll tell you guys. So the submission says, I finally paid everything off. I closed my credit cards because I didn't want temptation. I thought I was being responsible, and then my credit score dropped. I just stared at my phone like, how is that possible? What did I do wrong? So when you guys have to understand, like, the credit system is a debt system. How much are you using debt? So if you're using debt a little bit, you're going to have a thin profile. If you use debt too much, you're going to have high utilization. And when you start closing them, banks look at that and say, okay, well, they closed it. They don't need any money. So when you start closing on your accounts, it actually adds a closed account, but it takes away some of your history. It takes away some of the positives, and you don't want a bunch of closed accounts, because why are you closing all your accounts? Typically for me, I don't recommend closing credit cards. If you just have to let them sit, because it does affect your credit. When you do loans, home loans, car loans, it can affect your credit depending on how much history you have, your debt to income. And so it's important to know, just because you close your credit cards at zero balances doesn't mean your credit's going to go up. Typically it reduces your overall credit availability, goes down. So it reduces these things, and you don't really typically want that. The only time I recommend doing that is if maybe you have an annual fee, but even then I don't really recommend